Good morning.
This is nearly the same as we have in business breakfast. People are gathering and having coffee and networking. So we are all together. I don't see the count. How many of us already are in the meeting?
23.
Okay. You have that number.
Yeah.
Yes,
24.
in the menu below, where you can see people, you can see, if you press on that, two like figures of people. You press on that and then list of participants
Yeah.
appear.
Okay, that's on the top of the list. Yes.
Yeah.
Let's wait a couple more minutes and then we will start. Because we expect to have 40 people in the meeting.
Wow. Hmm.
Are you having many webinars now at this time?
Yes, 2-3 webinars per week. How do you find the idea to have the EBN meeting online? Could anybody comment?
I think Ginter, it's a perfect idea. We don't know how long it takes till this coronavirus is gone. So to stay in touch with all the members, I like it very much here.
Yeah. Okay. So we are thinking. Shall we do one more this before the summer break? Let's see what will be the feedback from this webinar.
Ginteras, I just have one suggestion that everyone who is not speaking, just please mute your microphones, because otherwise we have a lot of different noises going around.
Yes, we will do that. Right in a moment, I will start the meeting officially, and
Okay.
And then we will do that. So far, we have the coffee networking.
Okay, nice. I don't get my coffee cup yet, but that's fine.
Breakfast together.
So maybe I will really open the our breakfast, EBN business breakfast on remote this morning. So then in this case, indeed, let's a little bit reorganize ourselves, that all participants except speakers would turn the camera off and mute the microphone. Then we have more silence, and we will have even better connection for our meeting. So I once again, good morning. Welcome everybody on the EBN business breakfast. After some time, there's a pandemic hit on everybody personally, on companies, on businesses, and as well as the European Business Network. We have been keeping silence for some time, and then a couple of weeks ago we ran a questionnaire among our members. We have reached 76 members and guests, and out of that 46% they read the questionnaire, and we received 18 answers. Among the options, what has been given to understand your opinion, 44% of the audience expressed the wish to talk and to hear about the current economical situation, 20% on the government measures to protect businesses and jobs, to support. 23% wanted to talk about the recent developments of companies, how companies are preparing themselves and what initiatives are running to deal with the virus crisis. And 13% expressed a wish to hear more from the medical experts and biology specialists about the possible developments. So for today's topic, having in mind that the majority of our members are small businesses, and also we made from the board, we made a few telephone calls with the members to understand what are the topic preferences. We selected the topic which would touch the small and medium businesses, and we want to take a look on the next step, not the emergency step, but I think the emergency step is already behind us, and we are now thinking at businesses, we are thinking more about the longer perspective. And in this way, of course, it would be very interesting to know what is our government strategy on the longer term, and also what is the situation, what the experts in business predict on the situation, how they say what will be the next normal, or what will be the business landscape and the environment. So for this topic, we invited two speakers. On the government side, will be speaking Orijana Mašalė, who is the member of state-level emergency operations group. You know well this body, and this is the group of people. Orijana is one of them. So she will talk about the government strategy. This is already announced and it's available on the web. How the government will deal with their future business environment, and we would be very interesting to hear the insight from the let's say academic research about the business environment, about the trends, which we are now already observing some of the trends, but on more comprehensive level. And for this topic, we invited Neringa Ivanauskienė, Dean of ISM Executive School, to give us insights on this. I believe that the course of the schedule of our lectures we would like first to invite to the podium Neringa Ivanauskienė. Let me first a little bit introduce. Maybe we haven't met actually Neringa in our business breakfast meetings, but by taking this opportunity, I really invite Neringa to join some morning when we are gathering together and to see what topics we have here. Neringa, as I said, is the dean of ISM Executive School, and she is an associate professor at ISM University of Management and Economics. We know this university very well here in Vilnius. But it's important that Neringa has been working in businesses for more than 50 years in the medical sector, in pharmacy sector, and in banking sector. And they has her own hands on the business and understands very well from inside. So, but currently Neringa is specialized in strategic management. So that's again another angle of how to look on the more longer term events and changes. And this presentation for Neringa will be one of in the row, because she's talking at the conferences and giving academic presentations and business presentations. So by having this said, I invite Neringa to open your presentation, and welcome.
Thank you, Gintaras. Good morning, everybody. And it's really a pleasure to be invited to participate in European Business Network meeting today. And yeah, my intention is to share with you my thoughts about how the pandemic will change our behavior. Actually, I guess I should introduce a bit executive school as well, not only ISM University, as most of you are familiar with, but ISM Executive School is also some sort of a network for executives, network for business managers, CEOs. And despite studies, what we are providing at university, we also are trying to create our community. So today it's like sharing thoughts from two communities, ISM Executive School, which I represent, and European Business Network. And also I want to mention that Gintaras and also I saw Daiva is in participant list. These people also are participants of our executive school. So thank you, Gintaras, once more. And so let's move to my presentation. I will share some slides with you, and also, as I told, I will share my thoughts about how our future will look like. And I hope that now you are able to see my slides.
Okay.
Okay. So let's move to the topic. Actually, I myself have no doubt that sustained actions of governments to squash the spread of infection worldwide will have long-lasting effects on the economy. And these effects will include the loss of businesses and unemployment, as well as certain effect on consumers' attitude, consumers' behavior, and our future purchasing habits. Rick Milty, CEO for Innovision Marketing Group, suggests that one should analyze at least 3 periods of COVID crisis, as all of those 3 periods have a bit different impact on consumers' attitude and on our business environment as well. Therefore, while sharing my view on how the new normal will look like, I will shortly analyze all 3 periods of the pandemic. And as we all know, the unexpected quarantine has slashed profits for companies in almost every industry, in almost every country. Schools, shops, restaurants are closed, pedestrian zones in most cities are still empty? And how does it affect our behavior? The quarantine and the massive flow of information about how dangerous COVID virus is to your health and safety creates a lot of fear and anxiety among society members. That's why some of customers suddenly decided that all what they need during this period is only the essentials, like food, like water, like shelter, that's all. Some of people are concerned about safety issues. They thought how to protect him or herself and their family from being infected, and they fear to catch the virus during any unnecessary interaction. Therefore, this group try to avoid any interaction with service providers. And also they expect from businesses to take every precaution to ensure not to infect the consumer with the virus. And there is another side of anxiety. Some people fear spending any money now, especially on non-essential products and services, as they are not confident their income stream will continue. That's why any offerings from business like huge discounts, free delivery, deferred payments does not create interest to this particular group of the customers. And talking about the quarantine period, one can conclude it that in this early stage of the pandemic, consumers are worried about the health of their families, and also they are worried about whether they can buy for their basic needs in the future. Those common concerns are manifesting themselves in a bit different ways as consumers adopt new behaviors, what we have to analyze in order to help our businesses. Due to the recent survey published by Ernst & Young, more than a third of consumers are making deep cuts now. Others are continuing to spend as normal, but are changing how they live in other ways. Looking across the survey, Ernst & Young identified at least 4 segments of behavior. Save and stockpile. Some 35% of consumers who are worried about their families and are really pessimistic about the long effect on their income. Most of them, even more than 70% now, are spending less on clothing and leisure, while more than a third of them are now spending more on groceries. Consumers that fall to the cut deep segment are those that are hardest hit by the situation today, and they are most pessimistic about the future. Therefore, they are spending less across all categories. These consumers are mainly more than 45 years old and have seen the biggest impact on their employment status already. 78% of this group are shopping less frequently, while more than 60% are only buying essentials. And it's worth to mention what is important for businesses also, more than 30% of consumers feel that brands are less important to them in the current situation. Another group of consumers stay calm and carry on, are not impacted directly by the quarantine measures. Therefore, this group are not changing their spending habits. And the last ones, hibernate and spend, some 11% of consumers are very optimistic for the future. And in some categories, they are spending even more. Consumers in this group is primarily age 18-44, but as I mentioned, it's about 11% only. And again, it's worth to mention that almost half of them from this hibernate and spend group says that brands are now even more important when choosing the products. So focus on the brands. And it is clear, it is clear that in times of crisis, purchases are guided by very different considerations than in the absence of sense of emergency. Let's analyze the stockpiling behavior a bit. The stockpiling behavior that many people engage in when COVID first reached our countries has been referred to panic buying in some media. And actually what is worth to know, this behavior was quite different from reactions of consumers to previous crises. So why the society reacts in that way? According to a survey conducted in Canada, almost half of respondents, 45%, as you can see in the slide, reported shopping for groceries that they expected would last them between 1 and 2 weeks. Other group of respondents, 70%, had bought enough food for 2-3 weeks. And what are the reasons and what are the consequences of stockpiling to business? Will it last for a long time? What we wanted to know. Stockpiling can create shortages, it's clear, because supermarkets cannot restock items fast enough to keep up with the demand. We haven't seen shortages of food or other essentials here in Lithuania. However, we have seen shortages of disinfection and cleaning supplies. Stockpiling that wiped out access to necessities harms other people, both directly and indirectly. Directly, it limits immediate access to products for others, particularly for those in vulnerable groups. Indirectly, stockpiling behavior perpetuates feeling of a threat. Moreover, shortages lead to price increase, and some products in that situation are sold at a price much higher than is considered reasonable or fair. That has an impact on people with low disposable incomes, and again, so-called panic buying is triggered by the shortage. It is worth to mention that the sooner we in society can temper people's fears about the virus, about the lockdowns, about shortages, etc., the less stockpiling we are likely to see. And especially our politicians, our media, but as well as business entities should think about how to reduce fear and anxiety. If countries will face second wave and another round of lockdown, most probably we will see people stockpiling different things. If earlier people have bought boxes and boxes of face masks and disinfectants in Lithuania, now it might be a time to stockpile pasta, rice, beans, or other group of products. Some researchers says that over the time, most of consumers which are in stockpiling segment now will migrate to 2 new segments. And big part of them will remain frugal. In future, our consumers will spend less and will demonstrate some deep cuts in the product categories which are considered as necessity, which are considered as non-necessity products. Others will remain very focused on health issues, but as they stay relatively optimistic toward future financial situation, they will spend in those specific categories for health products, for products which are considered as safe ones or helpful for the consumer. So, in these uncertain times, no one knows how long the transition will take or whether different consumer trends will emerge. But what we do really know, the quarantine will not last forever, and already quarantine measures are eased. Therefore, let's talk about the reprieve period, which begins immediately after quarantine measures are eased in countries and people can begin to resume to normal activities. But will they do that? people will continue being fearful and anxious. The business should build relationship and trust during this period, and those who will manage to do that will be the winners when a new normalcy returns to us. It's important to talk about another psychological factor influencing people's behavior in this situation. It's uncertainty. If there is uncertainty about a risk we face, this uncertainty strongly promotes self-interested behavior. There was initially a lot of uncertainty about how badly countries would be affected. After all, how can we be sure that we don't need to stockpile if there is much uncertainty around? In addition to uncertainty, we people also dislike sensing a lack of control. In fact, unpredictability and uncontrollability are those two factors that humans find very, very upsetting. Faced with no control over how the virus will affect personally you or your future world, it is quite natural to control at least our spendings. Deep saving and stockpiling may unconsciously seem to people like the only thing we can control in this situation. And again, a lot of these psychological processes are fueled by fear and anxiety. Therefore, businesses should think how to reduce it, how to ensure consumers that it's safe to be in this surrounding, it's safe to buy your product. Due to some experts, the reprieve period could continue for up to 6 months at least. However, threatening news and messages from our country leaders, like we are at war against virus, can make this period even longer. We should think about how to reduce anxiety. During the last 3 to 4 months, we can saw extreme growth of online shopping. First of all, consumers were forced to behave like this because brick and mortar facilities are closed. Also, the fear, again, of being infected kept people at home. Some studies conducted in UK shows that great uncertainty led large proportions of people putting a complete halt to their physical buying and increased digital buying, what is clear. But we can see data showing that even now, when quarantine measures are stopped, numbers of consumers who had increased the digital shopping rose for each category measured. Therefore, one can assume that online shopping will be our dominant shopping method in the new normal period, and not only when buying groceries, but other product categories as well. Therefore, business entities should definitely continuously invest in the digital infrastructure. At the same time, physical retail is unlikely to disappear entirely. In many ways, brick and mortar stores still gain the value. Despite that we will shop more online, definitely, in the same time consumers will relish the chance to touch, to feel, to smell, to taste products before purchasing. On study conducted in UK, as you can see in the slides, people were asked which places or stores they'd be comfortable visiting once lockdown measures were eased. And as you can see, only garden centers were seen as relatively safe spaces, with 70% of respondents saying they would feel comfortable visiting them. Garden centers are usually out-of-town destinations, though. And also it's a spring, therefore people want to go to garden centers. But those businesses more likely to be present on the high street were viewed with much less confidence. Only about a third respondents said they'd be confident visiting various food and drink venues, beauty salons and gyms. with hairdressers and clothing stores being cited by fewer than a half. So it's quite clear that businesses should use this period to demonstrate to the customers that you care, that you will undertake extreme measures to help them regain trust, that you will create unique and special offers with higher value. Also, shopping online creates some issues for businesses. Shopping for groceries has become an increasingly digital habit here in Lithuania as well. Before the pandemic, we thought that the retail Lithuanian market was already well set for this digital shift, with advanced infrastructure in place for a home delivery, for example. However, this unprecedented demand didn't come without its difficulties, and most of service providers here, like Barbora, Last Mile, Wolt, and others, during the first months of quarantine were unable to provide groceries in time. Again, we shouldn't forget it and invest in our digital infrastructure. So, not only digital shopping, but with the closure of physical stores, consumer brands, instead of being relied on retail partners to promote their products through physical availability and mass distribution, should start to apply direct-to-consumer business models. What does it mean? You should promote your brand directly to your user, directly to the consumer. As trend watching suggests, one of other future market trends that will define our post-quarantine consumer is so-called virtual experience economy. Events which have until now depended on the physical presence of attendees are halted and quickly adapted to the new online-only environment. It could be predicted that in future scientific and business conferences, trainings, even the festivals, like, by the way, Eurovision recently, have to explore the opportunity to move away from current expensive and exclusive formats and to be happen online. What does it mean for business? Being online for the event business means the ease and accessibility to anyone to turn in and to turn out. So from one side, it seems that brands are really in better situation. They can spread the message across social media with quite a high speed via social platforms. From other point of view, we as a society starting to question the reason for traveling, for flying thousands of people from one country to another to attend business or scientific conference, to attend song festival, to attend network meeting like we have today. So it's a real challenge, and this shift will have a long-lasting impact on experiential market and also on the role of events for the brands, what we want to promote. So 3 periods that affect consumer attitude, and the last one period, back to normal, our new post-pandemic habits, our new customer, how it will look. The current health of economies has no real comparison point in history. This means most historical data is incomplete. Some of data is even irrelevant. However, with no doubt, moments of this crisis, as well as others, often reshape our cultural and individual values. And from a marketing perspective, it's important to evaluate your future customer, important to know the future habits. So how the new normal will look like? Honestly, nobody knows. But I wanted to cite one phrase written by McKinsey expert. We have never before attempted to shut down the modern global economy, and the reopening of the economy is a massive natural experiment by itself. So you and me, we all are now participating in this massive experiment, our consumers as well. But while predicting the future, there are a lot of assumptions that frugality will be the new normal. Why it's so? The quarantine have placed the economy into self-induced recession. And like previous economic recessions, young people are going to be hardest hit by it. Today, Generation Z, people born from 95 to 2010, is the largest generation, making about 1/3 of the global population. Some researchers predict that the recession is going to change their outlook and life chances. Even before the pandemic, young people had limited disposable income. Also, it could be stated that post-pandemic society, especially Generation Z, will be less materialistic. Young people will choose meaningful experiences over the product itself. Therefore, we can predict that the current economic situation could really give rise to a new era of frugality. Ernst & Young survey data with more than 5,000 people in US, Canada, UK, France, and Germany shows that about 42% of respondents believe that the way they shop will fundamentally change as a result of COVID outbreak. When it comes to brands and products, more than 30% of consumers indicate that they would pay more for local products. 25% would pay more for trusted brands, and about 20% would pay more for ethical products. Ernst & Young predicts that we will see 5 very different consumer segments after the crisis. More than 20% of our consumers remain frugal. Cautiously extravagant consumers, which the segment was called cautiously extravagant, 25% of customers have a strong belief that we will be in global recession after pandemic. However, while they are financially conservative, they expect to increase spend across non-essentials once the crisis is over. But 45% of those consumers believe that their shop will change permanently and they will change brands which will buy after. They respond strongly to purposeful brands, and even more than 60% of those consumers saying they would be more likely to purchase brands that contribute to the community, not only to the purchaser. As a group of customers, back with a bank, 9% of consumers fall to this group. They are younger, they are in work still, and even after crisis, they will be active in work. They will spend much more in all categories because they are the most optimistic towards the future. Keep cutting, other 13% of consumers, least likely to be working after the crisis, and therefore they will make deep spending cuts. They will change what and how they are buying, and pandemic situation for them, it's a huge worry. So I am trying to conclude now. Personally, I would say the pandemic is likely to cause at least 2 opposing social behaviors. The first type of people are those who suffered from isolation now and want to be even more sociable after quarantine measures are eased. Most probably they will quickly start visiting beauty salons, restaurants, shops. They will quickly start traveling and spending on same brands as they used to. And other segment who are more concerned about safety, who enjoyed working from home, spending time with a family, will be more connected to his own environment. For some of those consumers, quarantine period was an opportunity to re-evaluate their current lifestyle. We saw a lot of people isolated themselves in country houses, a lot of people started exercising. And there are data providing that sales of sport clothes as well as sport equipments like bikes have increased. Although one can predict that these consumers are going to change the way they live dramatically, we shouldn't forget that we as people are not very good at sticking to the new habits. And also it was to mention that many consumers like me, let's say, actually won't change their habits and will revert to their usual routines as before. So that is more or less all what I wanted to share today with you. And I hope it was not too long. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you, Neringa. Actually, it was a very good analysis. I found myself in one of the groups you mentioned.
Which one, if I may ask?
Okay, that's privately. But and of course, I feel that I have a certain pattern for the future consuming, how I will behave. But okay, let's now time for a few questions. I encourage that participants would type a question in the chat box, or we can take a couple of questions now just by the microphone. So if somebody would like to ask a question, please do so now.
I guess it was too long, so.
Okay, but let me ask one question. You are talking about the future consuming. How about the second-hand consuming, like vintage, for example, sharing of clothes or other sharing initiatives? Does this have a certain portion of risk or not risk, but at least danger?
Actually, as we saw in previous crises, this second-hand market always is booming during the crisis and even after the crisis. But this crisis is a bit different because of the reason why it happened, and as a lot of people have those so-called health issues, they will not feel safe. And we are not sure yet how people will migrate and how they will take a chance to use a second-hand product. Also, what we see now, shops, clothes shops have this issue as well. People do not want to try clothes at the shop unless they have a possibility to do that. Of course, when we are talking about second-hand cars and other equipment, it's another story. But when we are talking about clothes, there are some doubts.
Thank you. Thank you. Colleagues, do we have more questions?
So thank you again, and I'm really sorry I have to leave to another meeting. Another webinar is waiting for me.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much and good luck.
Bye.
Thank you.
And now I would like to invite Orijana Mašalė. And let me introduce in a few sentences. I think, Orijana, you have not been presenting at EBN. As normally we have speakers from time to time. So welcome for the first time. Orijana Mašalė is member of state-level emergency operations group, the famous group that we hear on TV. But this will be not the topic about this. It will be the topic about the government measures for the government strategy. But Orijana is well positioned to talk about that because she is currently serving at several boards in the government sector, and also she's has been working as advisor for the government and for the companies. For the famous Chevron we had in Lithuania, Orijana has been working as advisor for Chevron, and also Orijana is the active person and participating actively in American Chamber of Commerce, like our, let's say, sister body. We are a kind of chamber connecting many small countries. So with this experience and also knowing your experience in strategic topics, we look forward, Orijana, to hear about the government strategy in the post-pandemic period. The floor is yours.
Morning, everyone. I hope that you could see my presentation. Please
Not
confirm.
Yet. Not yet.
Oh. Gintaras, please confirm. Is everything okay?
No, not yet. We see you, but not your presentation.
Okay, let me try it again.
Yes, now it's coming.
Now it's coming. Great. Great.
Yes, now we have it in actually we have it now in the not in the presentation mode, but in the lecturer's mode.
Oh, that's strange. That's tricky. I miss those live meetings, you know, when somebody else takes care of your presentation.
Mm-hmm. Yes, now it's right.
Is it okay now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So good morning to everyone once again, and it's an honor to start morning like this, and at the same time to present you what this new reality is, which Neringa mentioned a bit. I worked for a government for just temporary contract. Being a person from business, I was asked to help in this COVID-19 crisis management, and it was quite an interesting experience to see this from inside. And I'm the one who talks about COVID-19 management strategy mostly. And today I would like to cover two sectors of this strategy, because both of them are very important. And first of all, we should speak about health, of course, as health is what is the most important for every country, and which got the most attention, as it first about human lives and health. And the second topic I will cover, it's about economy, of course, as our health economy is crucial, important as well. So going to a health issue, it's really nice to say that Lithuania is one of the leaders in the world, even if for some Lithuanians it's really hard to believe, but we are leaders in fighting coronavirus. And we don't have so many cases and deaths, but we do have so many tests that we did, and Lithuania is number 2nd per test per 1,000 people in the world after Bahrain. And this, by the way, purple wave that you see, it's Iceland, which tested like 300,000 population of the country. It's pretty easy for them. And Lithuanian samples tested is almost close to the whole island population. So we are really working hard on getting the virus right. And when we see to European data, when we watch European data, it's quite a tricky table, because usually we look at the tables and we are willing to be one of the first ones on the table. But here it's really good that Lithuania is number 7 from the bottom. And we are very happy that some of that is really low in Lithuania. And as you could see in Europe, United Kingdom, Spain, Italy is really in a terrible situation, and Germany, France, Belgium is increasing. But Lithuania, as other Baltic countries, we really did a great pandemic control. And what's important to mention that it's thanks to the whole Lithuanian population. It was not only about good government actions taken on time, but it was very important that population was behaving really carefully, respecting each other, taking care of each other. We had so many initiatives. We took so much care of the ones that are very vulnerable in the situation. And this result is really a result of the whole population. But let's not forget what the virus is. And especially today, when we started the event, people were speaking about sunny day, about nice atmosphere. And in days like this, it's very easy to forget that virus is still in our country. And virus is very tricky, as it not has only very high level of infectivity and mortality. But the trickiest thing is that you may spread virus not even feeling any symptoms that you are sick. And this is something new, and we're working together with scientists from all over the world to understand what's going on. But no one knows what's going on with the virus and what should we expect. I put the slide just on purpose. I'm not going into very deep scientific approach explanation, but I would like to emphasize that this strategy, new reality strategy, COVID-19 management strategy, it was conducted together with scientists and medical scientists, mathematicians, statistical scientists, and our scientists consulted scientists from Israel, Germany, United States, United Kingdom, and we worked really hard to get the right approach for Lithuania. And in fact, our strategy's main goal is to manage the pandemic and get ready for the next outbreak. Like World Health Organization said yesterday or 2 days ago that the second outbreak is very, very possible, and all the countries should not relax too early and get ready to that. So we are getting ready for that, and at the same time, we have 5 principles to be covered in the strategy, and I will talk about them a bit later. And we also have 4 priorities in our management strategy. First of all, it's related to virus management, of course. Then we should prepare our health system. And we also care not about hospitals, we also care about psychological health of the society. As Neringa mentioned before, people go through different stages related to this pandemic. So we should take care about emotional health as well. And after that, it's about quarantine, of course, and we will talk about a bit later. And socio-economic sectors and adoption to new conditions is key priority in the management strategy as well. So in other words, to talk it very simple, in health sector, we define risk groups and protect them. We also follow infection safety rules. We test proactively using like modern techniques. As I mentioned before, Lithuania consults worldwide, and we try to get the best experience which is possible in other countries. And by the way, we're even sharing our own experience. Like next week, I'm giving presentation together with the Minister of Economy, Vice Minister of Economy, and our scientists about how Lithuania dealt with the first wave of pandemics for European Cooperation Organization and Development, OECD. So we already have like people from many countries who are wondering in Lithuanian cases. So we really use modern techniques and take evidence-based decisions, and that attracts world's attention to Lithuanian practice. And we also try to catch virus fires. and we do it very proactively. And what's the key important in health is to minimize human loss. This is what we do. And I would like to emphasize this protection of high-risk groups, which makes some discussions public. And I would like to emphasize that high-risk group, it's not about discrimination, it's about protection. And we should understand that some people get really bigger risk of serious health issues and even death if we do not take good care of themselves in front of virus. And we were used to the fact that there are two risk groups, like high risk group and low risk group. A high risk group is usually older people, especially all the ones who have some latent disease, and lower risk is like younger people with no special disease. But what is important to understand is the fact that we put medium risk group, and it's related to social risk. So that means, like, for example, you are a young student in your 20s, so you seem to be in low risk group, but you live with your grandparents who are about in their 80s and they have some diseases. So you put really great social risk on your grandparents. So we developed this medium risk group, which should take care of their infection safety very, very carefully, as they could make some damage to the people around. So even at your work at your organizations, please pay attention. Like, even if you are young and strong, don't forget that you could do harm because virus is asymptomatic. You even don't feel that you are sick and you may spread it easily. So taking really good care of yourself, of others, is crucial to protect our communities. And we kindly ask you to do that and to follow all infection safety rules. So the new reality is like this, to talk it simple. Are you young? Are you older? Are you healthy? Are you not that healthy? But you should take care of yourself and others. And masks and disinfection, ventilation is our new reality. And even if you think the summer day is so beautiful, don't forget that virus is still very close. And please keep these safety regulations really, really carefully, as they help protect other people's health and life. Going to another priority and principle of strategy, we should understand that the government is going to be very proactive in controlling the virus and testing. As you saw me mentioning before, Lithuania is like one of the leading countries in the world in testing, and we are going to continue that. And that means that we do proactive testing in, first of all, hospitals, senior care centers, shops, companies, strategic companies, kindergarten, schools, universities, and we try to find the virus in the very, very early stage, and it's not still fire. But if we do have find like many cases, and we have this fire, so-called fire, like we've seen before, so we try to localize it. And localization may be in two ways. First of all, it could be in your organization, like if a virus spread in your organization, so our institutions is going to localize it and to protect your employees, your colleagues, their family members and friends, and keep them safe. So in that case, you just, the worst case scenario is like you close the organization for a while until everyone gets healthy again, you reopen your organization again. In the worst case, it may happen that you should close like the whole area. And usually people asking like, okay, so if you find many cases in Vilnius, does that mean that you are going to close the whole city? No way, because the city may also be divided into smaller areas, and the fire of the virus could be controlled like that. Like, for example, in Vilnius, now we got many virus cases in Rimi shopping center. So the shop just closed one shop, and the virus is controlled, localized, and is not spreading that much. So be ready if things like this happen, so it may be localized, and the most important thing is like not letting the virus spread in other areas. This slide is pretty complicated, but just to know that we used to have two-level health system. That was emergency health and planned health systems. But now our government put COVID-19 health system. That means like every hospital should keep its capacity and load manage to have some reserve for COVID. So that means like if we have the second wave, our hospitals should be ready to close some, for example, planned operations and to open that for COVID-19 patients. And this is very important to keep our hospital capacity and load management on the right level. And our Ministry of Health is really doing that, and our hospitals and other healthcare system organization is doing that. So we should understand that everything what's done related to quarantine is related to health capacity as well. No one wants to have cases like Italy, Spain, or even United States or Brazil have, because their hospital capacities are overloaded, and nobody here in Lithuania would like to get to this situation. So this is about health briefly, key important things about it. And the second part is related to economy. And my key message is that business will have to change. Neringa mentioned about consumer behavior, which is changing. But my message is that business will have to change in different aspects. And as you've seen before, our government was like releasing quarantine quite easily, I would say, not compared to other countries. Even for Lithuanians, for some of us, it seemed like, oh, too much of control. We are such a few free people. But on the other hand, every step was made looking at statistics, looking into health situation in our country, and every release of a stage was related to that, and it's going to be related to that. So we had like stage 1 release, stage 2 release, and etc. Now we are in the stage that, in fact, everything is opened except of our borders, because we still want to control virus spread in the country, and because we see that business is pretty responsible in handling the situation pretty well. We don't see really high increases of cases. Yes, we do see some, but not that high. And business will have to adapt. And all of us as consumers, as business owners, as CEOs, consultants, we will have to adapt. And looking to macroeconomics data of a country, the government is planning to have GDP fall up to 3% in the best case, or even about 7% or even bigger in the worst case if the virus is not controlled right. And it depends much on how the situation is going to be in the world, not only in Europe, not only in Lithuania, not only in the Baltic region. So the prognosis for Lithuania, it's still pretty much okay, I would say, considering all the situation that the world got in. And when we look in data in labor market, we see that it's stabilizing. And yes, unemployment rate has grown a little by 2.2%, but compared to other countries, we're still in moderately stable situation and handle quite well. And the government's response to COVID-19 outbreak is given 2 speeds. First of all, you probably heard about responsive measures right here, right now, so-called the economic stimulus plan. And the second one is planning ahead for the next few years, as scientists all over the world say that virus could live with us for quite a long period. So talking about economic stimulus plan, it was adopted early in March, and Lithuania was one of the countries which implemented the plan pretty soon and pretty well, and European Union partners really say compliments to us. So this plan is oriented towards like very, very quick measures to be taken for health system, unemployment, business liquidity, economic stimulus, and tourism, which suffered really much out of this crisis. And this plan is quite an unprecedented injection in the country's economy. And now we see that the plan is giving some results already, and especially for small business, and the government is really firmly monitoring the situation and is ready to adapt the plan and to adjust the economic stimulus package promptly if that is needed. The second plan, which is a long-term investment promotion plan, it's also one like new future Lithuanian DNR plan. So it's a long-term perspective, like 1.5 years, and I highly recommend for all organizations to watch implementation of the plan really carefully, as priorities is related to human capital, innovation, digital economy, climate change, energy, and economic infrastructure. So many of you could apply to different programs that are going to be announced, and programs are going to be announced quite quickly. And I really urge you to use this possibility and to change your business, to change your organizations if that's needed, because the government is ready to invest about 6 billion euros into that, and that's quite a chance for many of us. So going back to the end, what's important for companies and organizations on daily business, just some recommendations from my perspective, as I'm working in business as well. So first of all, I would recommend everyone to take really great care about safe working places. And taking care of safety of your customers and partners is essential in your organizations now. And please take care of people who are more vulnerable. Please help them. And we are creating something new in this era of COVID-19. So safety goes first here. And the second one, related to the first one, is non-discrimination, and especially on grounds of age and health conditions, because the government has already some business saying that they are going to fire all the people not even using the competences they have, or they don't want like people who have some health condition to work at their company. So I really hope that this kind of situation is going to be so rare. And we Lithuanians and we Europeans, we are going to be very united and protect the ones who are the most vulnerable. And be ready for cases of sick or even dead employees or fire of COVID-19 at your company. Please do have plans. How are you going to react if this kind of cases happen in your company? Because it's going to be quite difficult. This is quite a crisis for some organizations. For example, if half of your employees are sick, how are you going to work? How are you going to protect your customers, your employees and other organizations? So please take some time and think about plan in cases like that. And for the companies who are social responsible, for organizations who are social responsible, just a short message that senior people need help the most now, as some of them really take great care of themselves and try to avoid all unnecessary social contacts, but they still need help. So if you plan some social responsibilities initiatives, please think about all the people first, and that could be real social responsibility. And the last but not the least, don't forget to ask for help. And if you need any emotional support, if you need some advice, so there are so many psychological lines. There are so many lines for business, for cooperation, and for nice communication. So don't forget that the ones who seek for help, they are brave ones, and don't be ashamed if you need some help, and especially help from government institutions, because this is the time that everyone is trying to help each other. So life with Corona is our new reality, unfortunately, and we should adapt to it. And as it is said, every crisis brings new opportunities. So I hope that every one of us will use those opportunities, and we will be even stronger and better and helping each other even more after this pandemic that we experience probably once in our lifetime. So I would love to hear your comments, your questions, and I'm ready to answer that.
Thank you, Orijana. Nice presentations, and very thorough, deep presentation on the measures. Now the floor is open for questions, colleagues. I don't see any questions in chat. No, nothing is in chat. Does anybody wants to ask?
Yeah, good morning, all. Thank you, Orijana, for the interesting presentation. Thomas Castrel from the trade representation of Flanders at the Belgian Embassy. I have a short question also regarding a recent report Swedbank published about how the Baltics and the Nordics are responding to the crisis. Does this crisis actually also offer an opportunity to Lithuania to reform the healthcare sector as a whole, because there are some issues regarding the fact that it's underfinanced and unreformed for some years? Is there an opportunity now for Lithuania to reform its healthcare sector? Thanks.
I would say, yes, this crisis is a good indicator of the problems that had to be solved 10 years ago, 20 years, or even 30 years ago. And I believe that every organization is in a very good position now, thinking about the future in the context of COVID-19, because it's not only about health, but it's also about reorganizing the processes that we used to have. It's about thinking about our customers, about our employees and our way. So I would say it's quite a nice possibility, not for health care system, but for any other organization which faced this COVID-19 attack.
Thanks.
Thank you, Orijana. Does anybody wants to ask? Okay, while we are thinking, let me ask one question. I was thinking on strategic level, like you and Orijana are doing, and then the support measures are in principle the same to everyone. 257 euros for every individual worker, equally to others. And then the other ideologies, businesses has to apply and prove and present data. Now, the last measure, this subsidy for micro companies, it has been done in proportion to the personal tax paid. And that was immediate and fast, very, very quick measure to realize. And also precise to the business. If the business is small and pays less taxes, then it gets less. If it has more employees and pays more taxes, it gets more support. And this thinking was from very beginning in my mind. Why to go into analysis? Why not just to pay companies in proportion to all taxes paid immediately? What's your opinion? On strategic level, not on the number, on strategic level.
Now I'm in quite a tricky situation, sitting in the Prime Minister's office building and having my own personal experience. So, okay, I would put it this way: probably not all of economical measures were really carefully considered, as the situation was quite tricky. No one experienced nothing like that, and no one was really ready for that. And I believe that not all the decisions were the best for the Lithuanian economy, but I believe that people who worked on thinking about these decisions, they made the best that they could do in that situation that they were faced to. So it's nice to see that the government is adapting towards the situation, as I mentioned before, and some new initiatives are being implemented. The ones which are not that affected are being killed, and probably we will see some new initiatives. And maybe now it's time for governmental institutions to think a bit deeper and to implement maybe other measures that are needed to the health of our economy. So we will see.
Okay, thank you. I don't want to be the one asking questions, but still I have more questions. But how about the audience? Would anybody like to ask? Okay, then I would like to have my question on the ecologic or this Green Deal side. Still, there is a lot of talk about the Green Deal on European level, but what we know from the practice, the use of the disposal things like masks and like plates and all the like plastic bags, all disposable things contribute a lot to the health of society. And then I would say that we have to evade ourselves and stop talking about the collecting this and reusing these packages or using less plastic packages. My suggestion is to use more disposable packaging, more plastic, and then the question what to do after that, because then we have more garbage. And the way is to burn, not to clean, not to reuse. When I saw on TV the sequence that people in those ecological trash companies, they are selecting the trash. This is against the let's say human sense, against the human being. So I think the government should protect this kind of selection of trash, and then just we collect the trash and burn everything and produce energy. What do you think?
As it is mentioned in this long-term perspective plan, ecology, green economy is key for Lithuania. We really have resources, we have well-educated people, we have a really good mindset towards saving the planet, towards saving nature. And I believe that this long-term investment plan could help to be one of the leaders in green economy for Lithuania as well. And it, of course, it depends on the attitude, on your values that you have. And it's probably going to be up to the next government, which is coming in power by the end of the year. But me personally, I wish that Lithuania was one of the leading countries in green economy, and all the issues that mentioned should be implemented into that for sure.
Thank
and
you.
I saw that probably Mrs. Daiva was trying to ask something, because I saw that she turned on her camera.
Yes, hello. So thank you for the presentation. Maybe you know some information, what are the plans of the government? Are there any plans to invest in some new technologies, meaning the ways how all the government sector is working?
Daiva, the last, which sector is working?
Meaning in the ways how all the government and sector is working, are there any plans to invest in some digital technologies?
As I mentioned before, innovation, digital economy is crucial in this long-term investment promotion plan. And also at the moment, the government is making like tactics of the strategy that I've been presenting for you today. And one of the issues that is considered how to make work of public institutions more effective, and how to use the possibility that we already had with the crisis. Because, you know, like some time ago, none of us could imagine, for example, governments meeting on Microsoft Teams. I was like, really crazy, Prime Minister and the ministers discussing on Microsoft Teams? That seemed like incredible, but now it's our daily working routine. and even smoking finance minister was catch just because of new technologies we used in our work. So I wish, as a citizen, I wish that we'll use that chance, and many of bad habits of different sectors, private, public, NGO, could be changed, especially using this long-term investment promotion plan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have more questions? In this case, I would like to thank Orijana once again. Thank you for your presentation and your time with us. That was interesting. And I give a promise, I will invite you next time we have our breakfast to see you and then to chat with our group.
Yes, all those online meetings are very nice, but networking is the part I miss so much.
Yes. It's a good. And this morning we did a nice networking when people were joining. We are exchanging some small talks with the coffee. And but okay, according to the time we have to close our meeting. I'm happy that almost all participants have been in the meeting until the very end. We had over 30 participants in the meeting. There has been registered 40, but it's a pleasure to mention that somebody has joined from Latvia, somebody has joined from Netherlands. So this was really international meeting and international European business network. We will keep informing our colleagues about our future initiatives, future events. I would appreciate if somebody will write the short message, a short mail. How did you like the online meeting? What topics you would like to have a future in our discussion? So if there is the positive feedback and the wish to discuss some topics, I think we could organize one more meeting this spring before the summer holidays, as we usually have. Thank you everybody for participating in the European Business Network breakfast, and have a nice day and have a good deal and keep healthy and safe. Goodbye.
Thank you so much, Kedar. This was quite an interesting session.
Thank you.
All the best. Thank you.
Good to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.